Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to decode a moment in medicine where, and I mean this literally, a simple conversation can be the difference between life and death. We're talking about the clinical handover. So, here's what we're going to cover. First, why is this handover so high stakes? Then we'll look at the simple fix people came up with and, how that fix kind of backfired. And finally, we'll dive into how researchers are cracking the code to make things safer for all of us. All right, let's jump right in. Just how critical is this moment? Well, it's way, way more than just a quick chat at the end of a long shift. So, think about it. What do you think is the most dangerous moment in a hospital? You might be surprised by the answer. It's not in the middle of surgery, and it's not even during the chaos of an emergency. Believe it or not, it might just be the clinical handover. Yeah, that's right. The biggest risk can often be found in the quiet moments in between all the action, during that critical transfer of information from one person to the next. So, what is a clinical handover? It's basically the process of one medical team briefing the next one coming on shift. And this is a huge deal. A Landmark 1999 report, To Err is Human, pointed out that this is exactly where critical details can fall through the cracks, and that can lead to some really devastating mistakes. Okay, so to fight back against this risk, the medical world turned to a pretty classic tool for making things standard, the mnemonic, a memory aid. And the idea is actually brilliant in its simplicity. You just create an acronym that works like a mental checklist. That way, you make sure every single vital piece of info, we're talking everything from allergies to test results, gets passed along every single time. A great example of this is SBAR. It guides a clinician through a really structured report: situation, background, assessment, and recommendation. It's just a super logical way to make sure you cover all the bases. And you know what? It worked so well, maybe a little too well, because it inspired a whole lot of others. But what happens when a good idea just kind of spirals out of control? Well, this is exactly where the solution starts to become a whole new, really unexpected problem. So, a recent review of medical literature went in the hunt for all the handover mnemonics out there. And the result? They found 42 of them. Yep, 42 different checklists, all trying to solve the exact same problem. And here's just a little taste of the acronym soup they found. You've got everything from the 4 Ps and SBAR to GRRR and SHARK. I mean, the sheer number of these things creates a brand new kind of confusion. It's basically acronym overload, and it just totally defeats the whole point of having a standard in the first place. And like the study's authors point out, the problem isn't just that there are so many of them. The real danger is how similar a lot of them are. Okay, check this out. You've got isobar and isobar. I mean, say them out loud, they sound exactly the same, right? But here's the thing, they're critically different. One has a step for responsibility and risk management. The other one requires a readback to make sure everything was understood. Now just imagine 2 doctors from different hospitals talking to each other. That one tiny difference, it could lead to a huge, huge misunderstanding. So staring at this alphabet jungle, researchers decided to do something really smart. They set out to find a common language, to find the shared DNA hidden inside all these different acronyms. They basically turned into linguistic code breakers. I love this part. They took every single one of the 238 elements from all 42 of those mnemonics, and they systematically sorted each one based on what it was actually trying to do, its core function. In this chart, this pretty much shows their biggest finding. After all that work, it turns out every single piece of information fits into just 3 main buckets: clinical, administrative, and communication. And you can see right away there's a huge, huge focus on the clinical stuff. Now, this new framework does more than just clean up the mess. It actually gives us a window into what the medical community really prioritizes in a handover, and maybe more importantly, what it might be missing. It's probably no surprise that the data shows most of these checklists are all about the what. What's the patient's condition? What's their medical history? What's their basic info? And yeah, that makes total sense. But here's where it gets really interesting. The stuff related to the how of communication, things like your tone, or actually reading back information to double-check that you heard it right, way less common. And get this, things like medical social services, they're almost never mentioned. And that brings us to the really crucial point here. We've built these fantastic systems for transmitting clinical facts, but the tools we use often forget about the human side of things, the actual communication strategies that make sure the information is received and, most importantly, understood correctly. So, understanding that gap, the one between just saying the information and making sure it's truly understood, well, that's the absolute key to building a safer future for every single patient. Think of this taxonomy as a kind of Rosetta Stone. Now, instead of just grabbing another random acronym, a hospital can use this framework to really look at its own process. They can design a better, more balanced tool, one that covers not just the clinical facts, but also their team's specific administrative and communication needs. And as the study's authors put it, building a safer system is about more than just a checklist. It's about creating an atmosphere, a culture where things like validating information and having a good communication manner are just normal. It's about building a place where it's not just okay, but it's expected for someone to say, hey, can you clarify that? Or let me read that back to you to make sure I got it right. So all this leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. If we've gotten so good at standardizing the what of a handover, can we also get better at standardizing the how? Maybe the future of patient safety isn't about finding the one perfect acronym, but about perfecting the fundamental human art of communication itself.